This class is about thyroid hormone and antithyroid drugs.
At the end of this class, you will be able to describe the various steps involved in thyroid hormone synthesis, mechanism of action of thyroid, regulation of thyroid hormone secretion, actions of thyroid hormone, clinical features of hypo and hyperthyroidism, therapeutic applications of thyroid hormones, classification, mechanism of action, adverse effects and uses of antithyroid drugs and thyroid hormone inhibitors. So we will now see the various steps involved in the process of thyroid hormone synthesis. So you can see here the first step is entry of iodine into the thyroid follicular cell. So iodine enters the thyroid follicular cell along with sodium through a transporter called as sodium iodine symporter. Okay, so after this iodine enters into the cell, so it gets attached to the thyroglobulin molecule. Okay, so thyroglobulin is a glycoprotein which contains tyrosine residues. So this iodide after gets incorporated inside the thyroglobulin molecule, it combines with this tyrosine residues to form monoiodothyronine and diiodothyronine. So this process is called organification of iodide, and this step is catalyzed by an enzyme called as peroxidase enzyme. So after formation of MIT and DIT, so this MIT and DIT combines to form T4 and T3. So two diiodothyronine combine to form T4, one monoiodothyronine and one diiodothyronine combine to form T3, and this process is called as coupling reaction, and this is catalyzed by the same enzyme peroxidase. So whenever the secretion of T4 and T3 is needed in the body, this thyroglobulin molecule which contains form T4 T3, so it gets engulfed inside the follicular epithelial cell by a process called endocytosis, and then again it is cleaved by proteolysis and released into the bloodstream. So the T4 and T3 alone gets released into the bloodstream, which is cleaved by proteolysis from thyroglobulin residues. So this constitutes the steps involved in thyroid hormone synthesis. So the four important steps are iodine trapping and organification, coupling reaction, endocytosis, and finally proteolysis and release of hormones in the bloodstream. Both T4 and T3 are formed by the thyroid follicular cells, and both are released into the bloodstream. Okay, so T4 is actually released in a larger quantity than T3, but we know that the biologically active form of thyroid hormone is T3. So all the T4 gets converted into T3 before getting attached to the thyroid receptor. So this conversion of T4 to T3 is mediated by an enzyme called as deiodinase enzyme. So there are three types of deiodinase: type 1, type 2 and type 3. So type 1 and type 2 deiodinase catalyze the conversion of T4 to T3. Okay, so here the iodine from the outer ring, iodine from the 5' position from the outer ring is removed to form T3, which is the biologically active form, and you have type 3 deiodinase, which actually makes metabolically inactive substance called as reverse T3 and diiodothyronine. So reverse T3 is formed from T4 by type 3 deiodinase enzyme, which removes the iodine from the inner ring. Okay, so you can see here in the reverse T3 the iodine from the inner ring is gone. Okay, so when the iodine from the inner ring is taken away from type 3 deiodinase enzyme, we get a product called as reverse T3, which is an inactive component. Okay, and similarly the same type 3 deiodinase enzyme acts on T3 and converts it into diiodothyronine. Okay, again this is also an inactive form, and it is taken back into the follicular cell and gets involved in the formation of thyroid hormone synthesis. Okay, so this is the process by which T4 gets converted into T3 and T4 T3 gets metabolized into inactive substances. We saw that deiodination is a process by which we get biologically active T3 from T4, and also it is a method by which both T4 and T3 are metabolized. Okay, so apart from this deiodination, we also have some other processes which are involved in degradation and metabolism of thyroid hormones. So they can be degraded through ether cleavage, by conjugation reaction, or by oxidative decarboxylation. So these are the other methods by which T4 and T3 are metabolized apart from deiodination. We will now see how the thyroid hormone secretion is regulated. So as we all know, hypothalamus is the master control of all the endocrine hormone secretion. So here the hypothalamus releases thyrotropin releasing hormone, which acts on the anterior pituitary and stimulates the secretion of thyroid stimulating hormone, and this TSH acts on the thyroid gland and increases the secretion of T4 and T3. Okay, and somatostatin from hypothalamus has an inhibitory control over the anterior pituitary and release of thyroid stimulating hormone, and similarly T4 and T3 also have a negative feedback inhibition over anterior pituitary and it reduces the TSH secretion. And similarly we have a negative inhibitory action from drugs like dopamine, glucocorticoids and retinoids. So all these three substances inhibits the release of thyroid stimulating hormone, and similarly we have an effect called as Wolff-Chaikoff effect. So that is when there is high iodine intake. Okay, so we know that iodine is important for synthesis of thyroid hormones, but suddenly when the intake of iodine is very high, so what happens, there is an auto-regulatory process inside the body whereby this iodine decreases the secretion of thyroid hormone. Okay, so high iodine intake inhibiting the secretion of thyroid hormone is called as Wolff-Chaikoff effect. Okay, so this also have an inhibitory control over the thyroid gland. So these are all the positive and the negative feedback mechanisms which acts on hypothalamus and pituitary level and also at the level of thyroid gland. We shall now see the cellular mechanism of thyroid hormones. So we know that T3 is the biologically active form of thyroid hormone and it has the greatest affinity for thyroid receptors. And the thyroid receptors are nuclear receptors, so they belong to nuclear receptor superfamily along with steroid receptor, vitamin D and retinoids. So this thyroid receptor is present inside the nucleus. So the T3 goes and attaches to the thyroid receptor, and this combination, when again combined with the co-activator, it forms a complex, and this this activates the thyroid response elements, and again it modifies the gene expression by increasing or decreasing the transcription process. So this is the cellular mechanism of thyroid hormone. Actions of thyroid hormone, mainly it is essential for growth and development, especially during the early phase of life. Thyroid hormone is very much essential for normal brain development. So we know that cretinism occurs due to thyroid deficiency during the early phase of life, so which is characterized by severe mental retardation and stunted growth, and it also has thermogenic effects. It produces heat because it increases the metabolism and energy production, so it produces a lot of heat, and it stimulates heart, and also it sensitizes heart to the actions of your catecholamines, adrenaline and noradrenaline. So it increases the heart rate, it increases the force of contraction, and actually thyroid hormone has a non-genomic effect also. So we know thyroid receptors are present in the nucleus, and the main action is through genomic modification by modifying the gene transcription, but thyroid hormone also has a non-genomic effect. Okay, so it produces vasodilatation by releasing nitric oxide. Okay, so whenever there is a hyperthyroidism is there, you can see bounding pulses. Okay, so because of increased cardiac output and increased heart rate, and also there will be profound vasodilatation because of this release of nitric oxide by thyroid hormone by non-genomic action. And so this you should remember. Okay, so the non-genomic action of thyroid hormone is release of nitric oxide. And metabolic actions, it includes, it increases the LDL receptor expression, thereby decreasing the cholesterol levels. Okay, so it recruits the more LDL receptors, and then again it more of LDL comes inside the liver and gets metabolized, so it decreases the cholesterol level. And also the action of thyroid hormone is exactly opposite to that of insulin action. Okay, so it increases the blood glucose level, so it produces an insulin resistant state in the body. When the thyroid gland is hypofunctioning, we call it as hypothyroidism. And the hypothyroidism can be primary, secondary, tertiary, or congenital hypothyroidism. So when the defect is in the thyroid gland itself, then we call it as primary hypothyroidism. So that hypothalamus is and pituitary is functioning properly, and the defect is in the thyroid gland, then we call it as primary hypothyroidism. And when the defect is in the pituitary level, okay, so when both hypothalamus and thyroid glands are normal, but there is defective secretion of thyroid stimulating hormone from the anterior pituitary, then it is called as secondary hypothyroidism. And when the hypothalamus is secreting inadequate thyrotropin releasing hormone, then it is called as tertiary hypothyroidism. And congenital hypothyroidism can be due to genetic effects, genetic defects in the synthesis of thyroid hormone. And when hypothyroidism occurs in children, we call it as cretinism. Clinical features of hypothyroidism includes loss of eyebrow hair, thinning of hair, so there will be a lot of hair loss, puffy face, and enlarged thyroid gland. So the patients with hypothyroidism will have a goiter because of feedback, secretion of more amount of thyroid stimulating hormone, which increases the follicular epithelial cell growth. Okay, so patient will be having goiter, and the skin is dry and coarse. The heartbeat is very slow. Okay, so there will be bradycardia because of a decreased amount of thyroid hormone. Appetite is poor, constipation, infertility. So there is very important presenting complaint of hypothyroidism. So most of the females presenting with infertility, they will eventually have hypothyroidism. Okay, so thyroid profile has to be checked and treated for any case of infertility. And altered menstruation, extremities will be cool, and the patient will experience cold intolerance. In hypothyroidism, there will be cold intolerance, and the patient will always be feel tired, weight gain, poor memory will be there. So these are the clinical features of hypothyroidism. So you must always remember, a person with hypothyroidism will be lethargic, will be moving slowly, the reflexes will be very slow, okay, and he will be having bradycardia, appetite is poor, and they will look obese, infertility will be there, okay, and they will complain of cold intolerance. Hypothyroidism is managed by thyroid hormone replacement therapy. So the therapeutic applications of thyroid hormone is basically two. One as a hormone replacement therapy in hypothyroidism, and the second application is in thyroid cancer, where it is used to suppress the TSH production. Okay, so TSH is known to increase the follicular epithelial cell growth. So this thyroid hormone is supplemented to suppress the TSH production in thyroid cancer. And we have two thyroid hormone preparations, levothyroxine, which is T4, and leothyronine, which is T3. So levothyroxine is normally used therapeutically for hormone replacement therapy. It has very long half-life, so the T-half is around 7 days. Okay, and leothyronine is very shorter acting. So this leothyronine is used in conditions where we need to correct the thyroid hormone level immediately. So in emergency conditions like myxedema, coma, where immediate correction of thyroid profile is needed, we use the shorter acting thyroid hormone. Okay, so otherwise levothyroxine is commonly used, and since it has a very long half life, so it takes at least 6 weeks to for the thyroid level to be corrected. So once you prescribe this levothyroxine for a patient with hypothyroidism, the next the next thyroid profile investigation has to be done after 6 weeks, so that it has some effect. Okay. Hypothyroidism during pregnancy has some challenges. Okay, in pregnancy there is increased production of thyroid binding globulin. So thyroid binding globulin is a protein which binds with thyroid hormone in the plasma. Okay, so thyroid occurs in two states: bounded form and free form. Okay, so the bounded form actually it is a combination with thyroid binding globulin, and the free thyroid is without binding to thyroid binding globulin. So in pregnancy there is increased thyroid binding globulin production. So most of the T4 and T3, it occurs in the bound state, so there is less free T4 and T3. And similarly type 3 deiodinase is expressed in the placenta. So we all know type 3 deiodinase is responsible for metabolic degradation of T4 and T3. So basically the pregnant females will be having less free T4 and T3 in the blood because of these two facts. One is increased thyroid binding globulin, and the second factor is the D3 type 3 deiodinase expression in the placenta. So both will cause decreased level of free T4 and T3. So because of these factors, when a hypothyroid patient becomes pregnant, so their levothyroxine dose has to be increased in order to meet this increased demand. Okay, and since hypothyroidism is known to cause miscarriage, fetal distress and preterm delivery, it has to be treated meticulously. So even a mild hypothyroidism has to be carefully treated in pregnancy. Myxedema coma is an life-threatening emergency condition, and the classical features of this clinical condition or hypothermia, respiratory depression and decreased consciousness. So it has to be treated immediately with IV thyroxine. So here oral thyroxine supplementation is not helpful, so immediate IV administration of thyroxine should be done. And also it has to be treated with glucocorticoids, because there is always an associated adrenal insufficiency associated with myxedema coma. So glucocorticoids should be supplemented till the adrenal insufficiency is ruled out. So far we have seen hypothyroidism and their clinical features and management. Now we'll move on to hyperthyroidism or thyrotoxicosis. So Graves' disease is an important cause of hyperthyroidism. So it is an autoimmune disorder where there is IgG antibodies which stimulate the TSH receptors in the thyroid gland. So this antibodies act as a stimulant at the thyroid stimulating hormone receptor and causes increased secretion of T4 and T3. So you can see in this picture the thyroid stimulating antibodies which gets elevated in the Graves' disease, and the TSH and human chorionic gonadotrophin. So all these three act as an agonist in the thyroid hormone receptor. So all of these stimulating factors increase the secretion of T4 and T3. And thyrotoxicosis in its severe form, it is called as thyroid storm. So this extreme life-threatening condition is precipitated by infection, stress, trauma or myocardial infarction. So it is a severe form of thyrotoxicosis. These are the clinical features of Graves' disease. So in Graves' disease there is striking exophthalmos. This exophthalmos is due to deposition of inflammatory connective tissue around the periorbital area, and you will be having goiter because of excessive stimulation of thyroid stimulating hormone receptor. The patient will have enlarged thyroid gland, and there is increased perspiration and the patient will be at risk of arrhythmias, and there will be tachycardia because of cardiac stimulation and increased sensitivity to catecholamines, and there will be nausea and diarrhea because of increased bowel movements, and the appetite will be increased, and if the food intake doesn't match the increased demand, the patient will have weight loss, nervousness, emotional instability, oligomenorrhea in female, tremor, and muscle weakness. These are the clinical features of Graves' disease. Hyperthyroidism is managed with anti-thyroid drugs and thyroid inhibitors. So they can also be treated surgically. Thyroidectomy is an option for certain conditions producing hyperthyroidism, and drugs also forms a major role. So we have drugs which inhibit hormone synthesis, so they are called as anti-thyroid drugs. So they include propylthiouracil, methimazole, and carbimazole. And there are certain drugs which inhibit iodide trapping, that is entry of iodide inside the follicular cell, and these are called as ionic inhibitors, and these include thiocyanates, perchlorates, and nitrates. And certain drugs inhibit the release of hormones, so especially iodides and organic iodides, they inhibit the hormone release. And radioactive iodine destroy thyroid tissues. So these are the anti-thyroid drugs and thyroid inhibitors available to treat hyperthyroidism. Mechanism of action of anti-thyroid drugs, as we discussed earlier, the ionic inhibitors like thiocyanates, perchlorates, they block the entry of iodide into thyroid follicular cells. So they are anions simulating iodide molecule, and it will go and inhibit the entry of iodide at the level of sodium iodide symporter. And the anti-thyroid drugs like propylthiouracil, methimazole, and carbimazole, they inhibit the synthesis of thyroid hormone thyroid hormone by blocking peroxidase enzyme. And iodines, so they especially block the release of thyroid formed T4 and T3 into the bloodstream. So they mainly blocks the proteolysis action, which causes release of T4 T3 into the blood. So they cause thyroid constipation. Actually, say thyroid hormones which are formed inside the follicular cells are not released. Okay, and this action is very rapid. So iodides are used in conditions of thyroid storm, where you need to decrease the T4 T3 level drastically immediately. So in those situations, in those emergency situations, iodide are used to block the release of T4 and T3. And there are certain drugs which adds the level of periphery, which inhibit the conversion of T4 into T3. So the drugs which inhibits this peripheral conversion of T4 and T3 are mainly propylthiouracil, so which is an anti-thyroid drug, and beta blockers, amiodarone, and radioactive iodine. So these are the substances which blocks the peripheral conversion of T4 to T3. So beta blockers play a major role in the management of thyroid storm. So in that condition, beta blockers not only decrease the sympathetic overactivity, like it decreases the tachycardia, arrhythmia, risk of arrhythmia, but also it decreases the peripheral conversion of T4 to T3, thereby decreasing the plasma level of T4 and T3. Anti-thyroid drugs are generally safe, but they have a serious adverse effect, agranulocytosis. So periodic evaluation of leukocyte count is necessary for a patient who is on anti-thyroid drugs. So whenever the leukocyte count drops suddenly, so this agranulocytosis should come to your mind, and this is reversible when you stop anti-thyroid drugs. So proper vigilance is needed to prevent this serious adverse effect. And propylthiouracil is a drug which is preferred in pregnancy, so because it is safer and it doesn't cause any embryotoxic effect, so it is preferred in pregnancy. Methimazole can also be given, but it is especially avoided during first trimester of pregnancy because it has proven to cause embryotoxicity. So propylthiouracil is the most safest drug which is preferred in pregnancy. We will now see the therapeutic application of iodine, iodides and organic iodides. So as already discussed, it is mainly used because of the Wolff-Chaikoff effect. Okay, so we know that when the iodide intake is more, the body has an autoregulatory mechanism which inhibit the release of thyroid hormone secretion. So this effect is used therapeutically. So it intake of iodides will block the release of thyroid hormone into circulation, though it has a milder action at the level of synthesis also. And another important action is it reduces the vascularity of the thyroid gland. So iodide drastically reduce the vascularity. It causes the thyroid gland to become firm. So this property is used during thyroidectomy procedure. So iodides are given during pre-operative preparation of patients who are going to undergo thyroidectomy because it reduces the vascularity, so it decreases the hemorrhage complications during surgery. So we all know that post-operative hemorrhage is the most important complication of thyroidectomy surgery. So taking iodide before the surgery reduces this complication. And iodide is also used in thyroid storm, as we discussed earlier. So it immediately blocks the release of thyroid hormone secretion into the blood, and hence it is used in emergency conditions where immediate control of thyroid secretion is needed. And it is also used as a protective agent during nuclear accident in cases of radioactive substance leakage. So in those situations, so this iodides will protect the thyroid gland from the uptake of radioactive iodine inside the radioactive substances inside the thyroid gland. So when this radioactive substances gets inside the thyroid gland, it will cause severe destruction of the gland. So this iodide will protect the thyroid gland in case of such nuclear accidents. So these are the therapeutic applications of iodides in thyroid disorder. Iodism is a side effect of iodide therapy. It can be acute or chronic. Okay, so it ranges from hypersensitivity reactions like urticaria, laryngeal edema, skin rashes, and enlargement of parotid and submaxillary glands can be seen, and fever, anorexia, diarrhea. So these are the features of iodism. So it can be either due to acute therapy or due to chronic administration of iodide. So this again gets reversed if the iodide therapy is stopped. We'll now see about radioactive iodine. So there are radioactive isotopes, iodine 123 and iodine 131, and also we have a stable isotope, iodine 127. So radioactive isotopes are used for diagnostic and therapeutic purposes. So we know that radioactive isotopes, they have the property of decaying. Okay, so during this decaying process, they emit gamma radiations, and also they emit beta particles. Okay, so iodine 123 is a short-lived gamma emitter, so they emit more of gamma rays with a t-half of 13 hours. Since gamma rays they have the most penetrating property, so it is used for diagnostic studies. So in to pick up thyroid cancer or any hyperactivity in the thyroid gland, we use radioactive isotope iodine 123 because it has it emits gamma rays which has more penetrating property. And iodine 131 It has a longer T-half of 8 days, and it emits both gamma rays and beta particles. And gamma rays have penetrating action and beta particles have destructive action. So they don't penetrate much, but they destroy the local tissue without affecting the surrounding tissue. So hence this iodine 131 is used therapeutically for thyroid destruction in case of overactive enlarged thyroid gland, and also in case of thyroid cancer. Okay, and for thyroid ablation in the management of metastatic disease. So you must remember, iodine 123 is used for diagnostic purposes and iodine 131 is used for therapeutic purposes. There are certain disadvantages and contraindications with the use of radioactive iodine. So it causes delayed hypothyroidism. So after the patient is treated with radioactive iodine, so they may have a lifelong permanent delayed hypothyroidism, for which you have to supplement with thyroxine. And there can be very rare but significant increase in specific type of cancers like stomach, kidney and breast cancers, because these organs they also have this sodium iodide symporter. Okay, so this will uptake the radioactive iodine, so this may increase the risk of cancer in these organs. And the most important point you should remember, radioactive iodine is absolutely contraindicated in pregnancy. It should not be used. A short note on thyroid storm. So it is a life-threatening complication of thyroid toxicosis. So a patient who is hyperthyroid, when he or she is exposed to stress, trauma, sometimes this thyroid storm is precipitated, where there is sudden elevation of T3 and T4 level, so which may cause tachycardia, arrhythmias, sweating, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, confusion. So it has to be treated in an emergency basis. So the management includes IV fluid administration, antipyretics and cooling blankets, because the patient will be having hyperthermia. And since the patient will be agitated and aggressive, he needs to be sedated, and antithyroid drugs ought to be given in very large doses, and especially propylthiouracil is preferred, because it has an additional action of inhibiting peripheral conversion of T4 to T3. And oral iodides are used because it blocks the release of thyroid hormone secretion. And other drugs like beta blockers, which blocks the sympathetic activity and decreases the risk of arrhythmias, and calcium channel blockers, again used for the same purpose. So these are the other drugs used in the management of thyroid storm. To summarize, thyroid hormone synthesis includes steps like iodide trapping, organification, coupling, endocytosis, and finally proteolysis and release of T3 and T4 into the bloodstream. And thyroid hormone act in the nuclear receptor, like the thyroid receptor is a nuclear receptor which modulates gene expression. And we have both hypo and hyperthyroidism, the clinical features, and myxedema, coma and thyroid storm or clinical emergency, which has to be treated as an emergency condition. And we have preparations of T4 called as levothyroxine, and T3 leothyronine, used in the management of hypothyroidism. And for hyperthyroidism, we have anti-thyroid drugs, ionic inhibitors, iodides and radioactive iodine. And propylthiouracil, beta blockers and amiodarone, they inhibits the peripheral conversion of T4 to T3. These are the references. Thank you.